They loved you and left. You gave everything and still broke apart. And in the hollow silence that followed, only one question echoed: why me? Most people believe pain means punishment, that if it hurts, something must have gone wrong. But what if the pain you didn't deserve was exactly what your soul was asking for? Here's the truth. Pain doesn't come to destroy you. It comes when the story you're living no longer fits the person you're becoming. Comfort never changes you. Breakdown does. And heartbreak, rejection, loss, they're not random tragedies, they're coded messages. In the next few minutes, you'll uncover why certain patterns of pain keep repeating and why they won't stop until you finally listen. You'll see how unhealed emotions quietly shape your decisions, your relationships, even your health, and why pretending to be fine may be the very thing holding you back. By the end of this video, you won't just understand your pain, you'll know how to face it, learn from it, and finally use it. And once you do, you'll never see that heartbreak the same way again. What if the pain that shattered your heart was secretly sent to rebuild your soul? Emma had always been the steady one, the one people leaned on, the one who remembered birthdays, who stayed up to help friends through breakups. She was the glue in everyone's life. So when her boyfriend of 6 years ghosted her, no signs, no explanation, just gone, her world didn't just fall apart. It collapsed inward. She kept asking herself, what did I miss? What did I do wrong? But she couldn't find an answer. That's the part that stung the most, the senselessness of it. When you've given someone your everything and they walk away without a reason, it makes you question your worth, your past, even your future. Her friends told her to move on, that she was too good for him anyway. But Emma didn't want cliches. She wanted closure, and deep down, she wanted justice. Because nothing about it felt fair. That's what makes pain like this so heavy. Not just the loss, but the confusion. When you did everything right, and it still fell apart. But here's where most people stop. They spend years trying to make the world fair again, instead of asking the harder question. Because the pain Emma felt wasn't new. It had echoes of something old, something she had buried a long time ago. But what if the heartbreak you're feeling now is just the most recent chapter in a pattern you never noticed? Pain isn't random, it loops, until it teaches what comfort never could. 2 weeks after the breakup, Emma was clearing out a drawer when she stumbled upon an old birthday card from her dad, one of the few he ever sent. A flood of emotion rose up, not because of what it said, but because of what it reminded her, how he left when she was just 10. No goodbye, no explanation, just silence. The ache in her chest, it was the same. That hollow feeling of being abandoned, of loving someone who disappeared without warning. This wasn't just about her ex. This was a wound far older, one that never healed, just hid itself better. As kids, when we experience deep emotional pain, we don't process it. We pattern it. We shape our identity around it. And then we spend our adult lives reenacting those wounds, trying to finally win the love we lost, or trying to make sure it never happens again. Psychologist Dr. Gabor Mate says, the body says no when the mind can't. What we push down emotionally, the body holds on to physically. In Emma's case, her chest felt tight every time she imagined being alone. Her heart wasn't just broken, it had been bracing for this pain her whole life. She thought this breakup was a freak event, but now she saw it differently. This wasn't the first time she'd been left behind. It was just the first time she was finally paying attention. So the question isn't why do bad things happen? It is, why do we keep walking into the same emotional traps, even when we think we've healed? You don't attract pain, but you may unconsciously accept it, again and again. Liam was 34, a graphic designer from Manchester. On the surface, he had it all. A thriving freelance career, great friends, even a calm, gentle charm that people admired. But when it came to relationships, The pattern was brutally familiar. He would fall for women who were distant, emotionally unavailable. They never said they weren't ready for love, not in words. But their actions told the story. They replied late, avoided deep conversations, pulled away the moment things got real. And Liam, he stayed. He always stayed. It wasn't until he found himself crying one night in his flat, staring at the ceiling after yet another ghosted message, that something inside cracked. "Why do I always end up here?" he whispered. "What am I doing wrong?" That's when his therapist introduced the idea of the invisible contract, the subconscious agreement we sign in childhood that tells us what kind of love we deserve. Liam grew up with a mother who loved him, but only when he was quiet, helpful, never too much. His father, cold, withdrawn, always busy. Love, to Liam, had always meant distance. Love meant proving yourself, waiting patiently for someone to finally see you. So now as an adult, Liam didn't chase love. He chased familiarity. And the ache he felt each time someone left, that wasn't new. It was a replay of the emotional weather of his childhood. He hadn't attracted the pain. He had just mistaken it for home. But what happens when your body starts screaming what your heart refuses to say, and you still don't listen? If you won't face the pain emotionally, your body will hold it physically. Samantha was 41, a pediatric nurse in Seattle, fiercely kind. The kind of person who remembered birthdays, showed up with soup when you were sick, and always smiled through her own exhaustion. Everyone said she was strong, even when she buried her mum alone during the pandemic, even when her marriage quietly dissolved piece by piece, until her husband left a note on the kitchen table and never came back. She kept working, kept giving, kept saying, "I'm okay," until one morning she wasn't. Her hands started trembling, then the chest tightness, insomnia, brain fog. She was diagnosed with fibromyalgia, a chronic pain disorder. Doctors gave her medications. None of them worked. In a desperate moment, Samantha stumbled upon the work of Dr. Gabor Mate. One line hit her like a floodgate bursting. The body says no when the mind can't. That's when it clicked. Her illness wasn't just physical. It was her body screaming what her mouth had never dared say. "I'm not okay. I feel abandoned. I am grieving and no one sees it." Years of swallowing pain, smiling through heartbreak, holding it together for everyone else, had accumulated. In her cells, in her nerves, in her breath. Samantha didn't need more pills. She needed permission to finally feel. She joined a trauma-informed somatic therapy group. And the first time she cried, really cried, she felt like a dam had broken inside her. Her illness didn't disappear overnight, but for the first time in years, her body wasn't the enemy, it was the messenger. So how do you finally release the pain that's been quietly building for years? Every breakdown hides a breakthrough, but only if you stop running from it. Ethan, 37, was the kind of man who fixed everything: cars, broken faucets, his friends' lives, but not his own heart. He ran a small garage in Oregon, worked 6 days a week, and hadn't cried since he was 14. That's when his older brother Mason died in a motorcycle accident. They were inseparable. One reckless turn. And Ethan never forgave himself, though he never spoke about it either. So he did what many do. He buried it, deep beneath oil changes and beer nights and forced smiles. Until one afternoon his 5-year-old son Jack asked him, "Daddy, why don't you ever laugh like Uncle Mason did?" Ethan froze. He hadn't heard Mason's name in years, not out loud. That night something shifted. He walked into the garage, closed the door, and sat in silence. For hours, and that's when it happened. The grief hit him like a tidal wave, a full-body sob that made his chest ache and his hands shake. It was the moment he stopped fixing, and finally felt. Later, he would read The Untethered Soul, and find a line that would help him make sense of that night. "You are not the voice in your head. You are the one who hears it." He realized he wasn't broken. He was just full. full of years of unshed sorrow echoing in silence, and once he let it pass through, he began to laugh again. Not like before, but freer, softer, real. But how do you find meaning in pain that still stings? What do you do with suffering that refuses to go away? What if the pain wasn't here to destroy you, but to return you to yourself? Caroline was 41 when she lost her mother. It was sudden, a heart attack in the middle of a Sunday dinner. One moment, laughter, the next, silence. And Caroline, who had always been the strong one, the one who held her siblings together after their dad left, the one who made lists, paid bills, and planned holidays, crumbled. But not in the way people expected. She didn't cry, she didn't rage, she just paused. Days blurred into nights. She couldn't taste food, couldn't remember if she'd showered. Her calendar stayed full, meetings, errands, school runs, but she felt like a ghost moving through her own life. Until one day, 3 weeks after the funeral, she walked past her mother's old writing desk and noticed a single yellow sticky note taped to the inside of the drawer. It read, "Don't forget to be gentle with yourself." The handwriting was unmistakable. Her mother's. And that's when Caroline collapsed onto the floor, clutching that little piece of paper like a lifeline. That night, she lit a candle and opened an old journal. Words poured out, not polished or perfect, just raw, aching truths about how lonely she felt, how tired she was of being the one who always held it all together, and how, beneath it all, she missed herself. The version of her who used to dream, write poems, stare at sunsets. Mark Nepo writes, "Whatever opens us is never as important as what it opens in us." For Caroline, grief opened a forgotten door. She began painting again, volunteering, laughing without guilt. The pain hadn't gone, but it had carved out space inside her for presence, for beauty, for being. But how do you begin telling a new story when your past is still echoing in every room of your life? You'll keep hurting until you ask a different question. Not why me, but what is this pain trying to show me? Ben was 36, a high school music teacher who had always believed that life would reward him for being a good person. He loved his students like his own, stayed after school for struggling kids, took care of his aging parents without ever complaining, and when he proposed to his girlfriend of 5 years, he did it with every hope that the goodness he had given would come back. But she said no. She said she couldn't see a future with someone so safe. And just like that, Ben was alone. Again. He spiraled for months. He replayed everything he did right. He read old texts, tried to find meaning in the silence. But the ache stayed. Until one day, a 14-year-old student named Jonah came to him after class. Jonah had lost his brother to suicide, and he didn't want to talk to the school counselor. He just wanted to sit, in silence, in the music room, with Ben. It was in those quiet moments that something shifted. Ben realized this was the point. He had been trying to find meaning in his own pain, but maybe his pain had made him the kind of man who could hold someone else's. Pain didn't make him weak, it made him capable. As he sat with Jonah week after week, Ben began to feel something shift. The silence they shared wasn't empty anymore. It was healing. Slowly, he realized that maybe his heartbreak wasn't a punishment, but a kind of preparation. A way life had carved depth into him so he could hold space for someone else. He stopped asking, "Why did this happen to me?" and started asking, "Who am I becoming because of it?" The pain hadn't gone away, but it had changed shape. In the pages of his journal, he began writing not just what he had lost, but what he had learned: empathy, patience, stillness. He saw how his own ache had made him more human, more real. And that's when it finally made sense. He didn't need to outrun the pain, he just needed to feel it, to honor it, and let it shape something new within him. Because maybe he didn't deserve what broke him, but he absolutely deserved what it was awakening in him. And perhaps, so do you. Because the peace you're chasing, it might be buried right under the pain you've been trying so hard to avoid. The pain you didn't deserve was the interruption your soul chose. What if the moment everything fell apart was exactly when everything real began? Maybe life doesn't break you because you're weak. Maybe it breaks you because you're finally strong enough to stop carrying what was never yours to hold. Emma never got closure from the man who vanished after 6 years. But one evening, while sitting quietly by her window, she realized she didn't need his apology. The closure didn't come from him. It came from the version of herself that stayed, the one who kept showing up in the mirror, even when everything else had left. Liam stopped searching for emotionally distant partners to prove he was lovable. One day it struck him. Maybe the love he was chasing wasn't theirs to give. Maybe it had to start with him, not abandoning himself when things got hard, not numbing out when he felt unworthy. And the caregiver mum. She didn't beat her illness through sheer will. She healed in a different way, by finally letting herself be taken care of, by admitting for once that she was tired too, that her pain was real, that it mattered. Here's what they all learned. You didn't deserve the pain, but pain doesn't show up where you're broken. It shows up where you're ready to grow. And sometimes, the only way your life could shift course was for something to interrupt the story you were clinging to. The breakup, the illness, the loss, the silence. Not to ruin you, but to rewrite you. So maybe the question isn't why did this happen to me? Maybe it's, what is trying to be born through me? Because the peace you were chasing, it was always buried inside the pain you tried so hard to escape. And now, maybe, just maybe, you're finally ready to feel it. We began with a simple question. Why did this happen to me? Emma's heartbreak, Liam's patterns, the caregiver's silence, all different stories, but the same truth beneath them. The pain you didn't deserve, maybe the interruption your soul chose. Not because life is cruel, but because growth requires disruption. Psychology calls it post-traumatic growth. Neuroscience shows when we're broken open, the brain rewires. But the healing doesn't start in the mind. It starts in the story we choose to tell ourselves about what the pain meant. Emma didn't get her old life back. She got a wiser one. And maybe, now, you can too. Was there a pain in your life that changed you, even though you never asked for it? Share it below, because your story might be someone else's light. And someone else's story might be the mirror you didn't know you needed. At Metanoia, we're not just here to help you understand your pain. We're here to help you transform through it, to shift from knowing to becoming, to rise in life, in love, in work, and in the quiet relationship you have with yourself. If something in this video stirred something in you, consider walking this path with us. Thanks for being here, and most of all, thanks for still showing up.